Sadahari. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Namaiva Kevalam. Kalau Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatir Anyata. Last time I was here, I spoke on the very first verse of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. A few weeks ago, a member of the temple board asked me to explain the relationship between the Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So before speaking, I will invoke the sacred mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. The Bhagavad Gita is a summary of all the Vedas. If you were to pick one scripture, if you had the choice amongst all the scriptures in the world, and if you wanted one definitive that would incorporate all other scriptures, then that has to be the Bhagavad Gita, because it is spoken by the supreme authority, Bhagavan, Sri Krishna. And the Bhagavad Gita is also known as Gita Upanishad or Gita Upanishad. And the gist of Bhagavad Gita, if you read it and you have its proper understanding and conclusion, then according to Krishna, Vedaishcha Sarvair Aham Eva Vedya, Vedanta Krid Veda Vid Eva Chaham, that by studying all the Vedas, one should come to the conclusion that Krishna is the last word in the absolute truth. Beyond the conception of God is the conception of the absolute truth. And that absolute truth is known as Brahman in its first initial understanding. The next progressive understanding, Paramatma, the Lord in the heart. And the final realization of the absolute truth is Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. And there are innumerable personalities of Godhead. But as Krishna himself says in the Bhagavad Gita, Matta Parataram na anyat, there is no truth superior to me. The conclusion of Bhagavad Gita is that one is convinced thoroughly that Krishna is the ultimate, that Krishna is the person to whom we should surrender. And like Arjuna at the end of Bhagavad Gita, we should abide by Krishna's instructions to surrender to him. Krishna says the way to surrender to him is Manmana Bhava Madbhakto Madhyajimam Namaskuru. To always think of him, to become his devotee, to worship him, and to offer our humble obeisances unto him. That is for our benefit, not for his benefit. It is for our benefit. Whether we surrender or not has no effect on Krishna. But for our benefit, he is instructing that we should surrender to him. Bhagavad Gita teaches 5 subject matters. What is God? What is the living entity? What is this material energy? What are the results of one's actions in this world? And how everything in this world is under the control of eternal time. These are the 5 subject matters of the Bhagavad Gita. Now, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam picks up where the Bhagavad Gita ends. The Bhagavad Gita ends with surrender to Krishna. The Bhagavatam is explaining how and why and where you should surrender to Krishna. It is the same knowledge. The Bhagavad Gita is a summary. The Bhagavad Gita is very, very concise. Bhagavad Gita is 700 shlokas or verses. But the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is 18,000. And the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has 10 subject matters. And the 10th subject matter is the most important. It is called the Saman Bonam, or the ultimate good. And that Saman Bonam is the same person who speaks Bhagavad Gita, Lord Sri Krishna. In the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, one is taught how Krishna is the source of all other incarnations. In fact, there is a very important line that occurs in the very 3rd chapter. There are 335 chapters in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam of 12 cantos. And you could say the mission statement of the entire Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam, that there may be many incarnations of God, but the original source from whom all the incarnations come is necessarily Krishna. And the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam scientifically presents that throughout its 12 cantos. Last month I spoke on the very first verse, so today I'm going to speak on the 2nd verse, because the first 3 verses of the Bhagavatam are like a preamble, or the beginning introduction from which all the other verses are going to explain. In the first verse, we learned how Krishna, or as it is known in Bhagavad Gita, Vasudeva, how he is the absolute truth, meaning everything comes from him, everything rests on him, and everything will ultimately enter into him. That is one way of looking and defining the absolute truth. That from which everything comes, that from which everything is maintained, and that from which everything is ultimately concluded. Now, and the author of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Vyasadeva, compiled the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam on the order of his guru, Narada Muni. That episode is delineated in the 5th chapter of the 1st canto. How Vyasadeva was despondent, and he asked his spiritual master to remove and find out what it was the root cause of his mental depression, why he was feeling deficient after Vyasadeva had edited the one Veda into 4 divisions, how Vyasadeva had compiled 108 Upanishads in order to describe the transcendence, because the Vedas, the 4 Vedas, deal with mostly the material world, material activities, religion. And after compiling the Mahabharata, and inside the Mahabharata, the whole target is Bhagavad Gita. And after writing his most scholarly work, Vedanta Sutra, Veda anta, where does knowledge end? But it was written in code, and therefore Vedanta Sutra is only understood by great Brahminical scholars who are most conversant with Sanskrit and have understood the 108 Upanishads. So the Vedanta Sutra is not something that is easily understood by the common man. But after compiling all these Vedic literatures, Vyasadeva was not happy. And therefore his spiritual master came and instructed him to compile Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the beautiful story of the personality of Godhead and his devotees. That is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. How God is relating to his devotees or servitors. So, this second verse gives us an understanding of the position of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. I will chant the Sanskrit verse and I will explain it line by line. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nimatsaranang satang vedyang vastavam atra vastu shivadang tapatrayon mulanam Śrīmad-Bhāgavate Mahamuni Krite King Va Parayar Ishvaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyatetra Kritibi Shushrusubis Tat Shanat. So, what is being stated here by Vyasadeva? Number one, completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated. This is revolutionary. There are two kinds of religion: material religion and real religion. Material religion is all about approaching God, but with selfish intentions, material desires. The worshiper is thinking, I will approach God or his representative in order to get material facilities so that I can enjoy. And the Sanskrit word kaitava means that material religion is cheating religion, which is why I said there are two kinds of religion: material and real religion. Real religion is what is promulgated in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. What is real religion? How to love God. Whether or not I get anything in return, pure religion is I love God no matter what, regardless. And this is expressed through so many songs and stories and incidents throughout the Bhagavatam. And you've heard them over the years. The story of Prahlad, the story of Lord Ram, the story of all the incidents with God and his devotees. The current theme is that the devotee simply wants to love and serve God without any expectation of reward. For instance, there is the story of Dhruva. When Dhruva approached God, he actually had a great material desire. He wanted the greatest kingdom possible. And his spiritual master Narada instructed him how to worship Vasudeva. He gave him the mantra that you all know, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Within 6 months, God appeared to him. 6 months, he's a 5-year-old boy. And God gave Dhruva a most unique benediction. God said, yes, I'm going to give you the greatest kingdom. First, you're going to rule the earth for 36,000 years. At most, the President of the United States can rule 8 years. Dhruv was ruling the earth 36,000. Not only that, the Lord said, and Dhruva, your senses will not get old. You will have youthful senses for 36,000 years. As we are getting older, we can appreciate that. We are noticing day by day how our senses are becoming weaker, less potent. We need glasses, we need hearing aids, we need so many, because our senses are dwindling right before our very eyes. Dhruva, 36,000 years, strong, youthful senses. Then the Lord said, and after that, I'm giving you your own planet, and I will be on your planet, and although that planet is within the material world, it will remain eternal. It will become Vaikuntha, the pole star. Dhruvaloka is a local Vaikuntha spiritual planet within the material world. So he got the trifecta. Complete material facilities, and he gets his own spiritual planet where he will live with God. But what did Dhruva say after the Lord disappeared and benedicted him? That's significant. Dhruva condemned himself. Dhruva realized, I'm so stupid. I worship the Lord to get something material when I should have worshiped the Lord for the Lord. So he condemned himself, and he gave a nice analogy. He said, just like there's a difference between a diamond and broken pieces of glass. To those who don't know, you may be sold what is a diamond, but actually it's glass, because you don't know the difference. And we all know there is a difference between glass and diamond. So Dhruva said, my material desire was like broken pieces of glass. If I had prayed to the Lord for his pure service, that would have been Divya Ratna, a divine transcendental diamond gem. So Dhruva condemned himself that he misused the opportunity. And the gist of Bhagavatam, in incident after incident, we are learning how the true understanding of religion is love of God. So the Bhagavatam says, right from the start, no games being played. It's telling you right in the beginning. Like sometimes you do something and there's a disclaimer, and that tells you before you do this, you should know this. Like if you buy a medicine or some product, sometimes they, like you've seen on TV, they have these ads, and at the end of the ad, may cause death. Right? You've seen those medicine commercials. They make it sound so great, then at the end, blah, 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 may cause this, that, death. Cheating. Not only in religion, this is the age of Kali. Everything is cheating. Everything. Government. Anybody disagree? Cheating government? No? Yeah, all over the world. Right? Not that America has a monopoly, all of them. Everybody's being cheated. So Bhagavatam, right from the start, is telling you, if you're looking for material religion, Stop here because you're not going to find it in Bhagavatam. Next thing. This Bhagavat Purana, so Purana, it's going to give historical accounts, not mythology. Historical accounts. That's a Purana. Some people think Purana means stories or myths. No. Vyasadeva is such a brilliant scholar, he's not going to write fairy tales. But he is going to write histories. So this Bhagavat Purana, meaning histories about God and his devotees, it propounds the highest truth. And I already said what is the highest truth. Love of God. There's nothing higher than love of God, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. This is why many people can't appreciate Bhagavatam. Why? Their heart is not fully pure. The actual Sanskrit word nirmatsaranang means free from envy. Envy is one of the greatest sins. Actually, it's the original sin. The reason we left the spiritual kingdom of God is all because of envy. That's the original sin. Envy. Even in the Christian Bible, what was the original sin? It was envy. Because Eve was tempted that if you eat this fruit, even though God told them not to eat this fruit, but Eve listened to Satan, and Satan said, yes, the reason why God doesn't want you to eat this fruit is because you would become equal to him. And she took the bait. What does that mean? I can become equal to God? That is envy. The original sin is there in the Bible, and it is the same original sin that is taught. This I have learned from my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada. The original sin. Trying to be something we are not fit for. We are not fit to be God. We can be servant of God. Many of you know, because you are devotees of Lord Ram, Ram asked Hanuman for any benediction. Did Hanuman say, make me equal to you? What did Hanuman say? I just want to serve you. There you have it. That is the highest truth. He just wants to serve Lord Ram forever. Doesn't want anything. That's why we call him Bhaktaraj, the king of the devotees, because that's what a devotee is. A devotee is somebody who simply wants to love and serve God eternally. So Bhagavatam propounds this highest truth, but in order for you or anyone to relish or appreciate this, you have to become free from envy. That's the first, requisite. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna told Arjuna there were two qualifications Arjuna had why Krishna was speaking to him. Anybody know those two qualifications of Arjuna? Why Krishna was speaking to him? Devotee and somebody reads Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktosi me sakha cheti. That was Arjuna's qualification. Thank you very much. Krishna said, because you are my devotee and you are my friend. So in Bhagavatam, the qualification has nothing to do with your birth, nothing to do with your color, nothing to do with your gender. There's no mention of that. Doesn't say anything about being Hindu. It's not there. There's no word Hindu in any Vedic literature. But fully pure in heart, no envy. And envy begins with envy of God. And after envy of God, envy of those things that belong to God, like this material world and other living entities. But if I'm fully pure in heart, then I can understand Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The verse continues, the highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Yes, this is also mentioned in the Chatushloki of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the original 4 nutshell verses that Brahma, the creator, received from Narayan. The original first recitation of Bhagavatam was at the dawn of creation, when Lord Brahma was instructed. He only needed 4 verses. We need 18,000. But he is too intelligent. He just needed 4. And one of those verses, Krishna said, was that if you think that there is something separate from me, that is Maya. That is a reflection. It's not the truth. Just like that classic example, the tree on the bank of a lake. If you look at the lake, the tree is reflected upside down. This material world is like the upside down tree reflected on the lake. The real tree, that's the reality. Bhagavatam is distinguishing the fact from the illusion. So illusion is simply, what is Maya? To think that there's an existence excluding Krishna. That's Maya. To think that there's some reality that doesn't involve God, that doesn't involve surrendering. That's illusion. That's Maya. So the Bhagavatam is going to simply give example after example after example, one of my favorite topics, how this material world is a dream. No different than the dreams you have at night. Some of them are good dreams, and you're thinking, I am flying, I'm the king of heaven. Then the alarm goes off, oh, I was only dreaming, now I gotta go to work. Oh. And there's the other kind of dream. Save me, save me. Oh, it was a dream. Oh. But there's no difference, because it was simply a mental creation. It had no real existence. Guess what? I have done a research on this concept of how the material world is a dream. I have found several dozen references of verses where it says material existence is a dream. And many of them come from Krishna in the Uddhava Gita. Repeatedly, Krishna is telling Uddhava, because Krishna is about to leave the planet. And so Krishna is preparing Uddhava how to exist after he's gone. So Krishna is instructing Uddhava, you have to become self-realized, and you have to understand this material existence is just like a dream. Wake up. So what is that waking up? Waking up is hearing and understanding Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Waking up begins when you chant Krishna's name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Distinguishing reality from illusion for the welfare of all. That's another point. that it's for all living entities, not just even humans. We care about all living entities. That's why we don't kill animals to eat, because that's also based on envy, brute mentality. Slit the throat, eat. That's barbaric. Welfare for all. Welfare for all. The word in Sanskrit, praja. And Krishna says that he is the Lord of all the praja. So we are not allowed to harm any living entity for our own satisfaction. So we are understanding this philosophy for the welfare of all, not just for me or my family or my community or my nation, no, for all. Now the verse continues. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. What are those threefold miseries? Shri Rādhā Raman Bhagavan ki jai. Adhyatmic, adibautic, adidaivik. And I've added a fourth one, aditechnic. I'll explain that after I do the first three. Adibautic, our bodies and mind cause us suffering. Just like my wife today has big migraine headache. There's no cure. You just have to chant. Okay? As we're getting older, we're all realizing how this body is causing distress. And as we go about our daily affairs, something's bound to happen. Our mind becomes disturbed. Somebody even looks at us the wrong way, we become disturbed. You looking at me, man? Especially in this age of Kali. Yeah, the age of Kali is so toxic that it just takes a little thing and everybody's ready to fight. Everybody is agitated, especially now. Have you noticed in the past few months so much fighting going on? Right? Israel, Palestine, now Russia is attacking. Also in Iraq, even here in America, so much fighting. It's the modes of nature. It's the age of Kali. But there won't be any fighting here, right? Will there? Yes. So the threefold miseries, Adi, your body and mind. Then other miseries, Adi Daivik, that which is caused by ultimately the demigods. Right? This week, was it a little too hot for you? Right? You ran that AC, even at night. Right? Where I lived, even at night it was 80 degrees. So you have, and there's fires. Isn't there fires up in Northern California? And in the Midwest, they're getting freezing cold already. Adi Daivik. Adi Botik. Other living entities cause us misery. I remember the first time, 1975, in Vrindavan. I'm sitting down, eating on my leaf plate. They gave me prasadam, and an army of flies covered the whole plate. And so I had to go like the devotee said, just whisk them away and eat. So as soon as you take one bite, they come out. So you're like this. That's how you're eating your lunch. Yeah, was the rainy? Yeah, I arrived in June. I guess so, right? We suffer from cockroaches, mosquitoes, right? Other living entities. And I explained the fourth one, aditechnic. We are so attached and dependent on technology that if something goes wrong, we feel like the end of the world. If our computer doesn't work, oh my God! When there's the cell phone, you don't get any reception. What? Right? So now we've created the fourth misery, Adi Technic. We're so, really, there's the whole world right now. If they figure it out, which they will one day, some terrorist will do something, all the banks, all the electric shut down. Right? Everyone will panic. Riots. Right? That's why that song, Kamala Dala Jala Jivana Talamala, it's exactly what is our position. Like a drop of water on the lotus leaf. At any moment, comes crashing down. We already had 9/11. So, it can happen at any time. Better be secure with Krishna. The verse continues. This beautiful Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva is saying, beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by him, because he's Mahamuni. There are many Munis, but Vyasadeva is called Bhagavan Rishi, God in the form of a Rishi, Shakti-Avesh avatar. He's a living entity like you and me, but he has been given great powers by God. Shakti-Avesh. Great powers to compile these Vedic literatures, and most importantly, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. In his maturity, I already explained that. This was his last literary work. After doing everything else, Bhagavatam was his final. And I didn't mention, but I'll mention now, Bhagavatam is, now, I explained to you the Vedanta Sutra in the beginning, how that was Vyasadev's great scholarly work, Vedanta Sutra. So, if an author writes a book and then gives his own commentary on that book, you would want to take that opinion as authoritative, because the author knows what is his intent. So the author of the Vedanta Sutra wrote his own commentary, and that natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Meaning, doesn't matter that you can't read Vedanta Sutra. I've tried. You'll just get a headache. Okay? I've tried. It's really difficult. It's so technical. But it doesn't matter, because the author wrote his own commentary, and everything that you would want to know from the Vedanta Sutra is right there in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in a form which is easily accessible. Just like when you were with your children, maybe you had to give them medicine. So maybe the medicine was very strong, so you mixed it with something sweet, so that they would take the medicine. Otherwise, giving a child the straight medicine. I remember when I was young, and my mother would call the doctor. He would bring this brown stuff, and it was the nastiest. I dreaded getting sick. I said, oh no, that doctor's going to come. He's going to give me a shot in the buttocks, and he's going to make me drink this brown stuff. So I prayed, I don't want to get sick. So that medicine was very, very nasty. I can still remember it. Ugh, brown. Some kind of sulfur medicine, I remember. So we take medicine for children, and we make it in a form that's palatable. So Bhagavatam is like that. It's giving you medicine, and it's putting it in a form which you will like to take. For instance, if you tell a child, oh, you have to take this medicine, it's just like candy, the child is not going to argue. Candy, right? Bhagavatam is the sweetest candy medicine. All right, the verse continues. This Bhagavatam is sufficient in itself for God realization. So if you are serious about realizing God and your relationship with God, Bhagavatam is there. And what does Prabhupada say? Prabhupada says that if you go step by step, by the time you reach the end of the 9th canto, you should be self-realized. And then what happens in the 10th canto? Krishna's Janma Karma Chame Divyam. Krishna's birth and activities are explained in the 10th canto. But you should go systematically. That's why I'm going to go like that. We did the first verse last month. This verse second verse this month. Is sufficient in itself for God realization. Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada's guru said that if all the books in the world were destroyed, if we still have Bhagavatam, no loss. Why? It's sufficient in itself for God realization. And what's more important than God realization? If somebody thinks there's something more than God realization, they're in illusion. They're dreaming. God realization, that's the first teaching of Vedanta Sutra. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Vedanta Sutra says, therefore. It's a funny way to start a book. Therefore. But that's because you are supposed to have read the 108 Upanishads. Therefore, the goal of human life, the beginning of Vedanta Sutra, realization of God, the Spirit. Bhagavatam is sufficient in itself. Then the verse says, therefore, what is the need of any other scripture? Why would you want something else? Unless you're interested in that cheating materialistic religion, which is very prominent everywhere. Everybody's got that. So if you're not interested in pure religion, you're not interested in reality, then yes, you'll find so many things more important than Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. As soon as one attentively and submissively, attention and submission. Otherwise, a challenging spirit, you're going to miss. Same thing Krishna told Arjuna. How do you approach the Guru? You render service and ask questions. First, you render service. And pranipatena, you humble yourself. Same thing. I've given the example so many times. Don't waste your time, spend your money and going to a doctor and then asking that, wait a second, doctor, you don't know what you're talking about. Then why did you go to the doctor? You go to a doctor because he knows what you don't know. And you're going to tell him, wait a second, I don't know if I want to do that. Then why'd you go? Don't waste your time. Don't waste his time. So the same way with a spiritual master, don't go to a spiritual master and then, I'm going to do what I want anyway. What's the point? If you're going to approach a spiritual master, you're going to approach a doctor, because the spiritual master is a spiritual doctor. Dr. Prabhupada. He's my doctor for spiritual life. I study his instructions every day. As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within one's heart. So someone may say, wait a second, the Lord's already there. That is true. But is he actually established in your heart? Do you feel his presence in your heart? That only you can say. But if you want the presence of the Lord to be always in your mind, you always want to be in that consciousness, Bhagavatam, by culturing this knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established in one's heart. That is the second verse of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. In 2 weeks, I will be back, and we'll go to verse number 3, because these first 3 verses are very, very instructive. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I thank this temple for inviting me every month to come and speak, and I pray to Krishna that this goes on until I'm 108 years old. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.